Hey, well, hello, and welcome to April's installment of the Legacy Conversation series. My name is Latavia. I am the owner and principal attorney of LA Legal Solutions, and we are in the second year of doing the Legacy Conversation series. And just a little bit about it, the goal is kind of just as it is in the name, is to have conversations about our legacy, about what it is, why we need, why we have one, or who, whether you think you have one or not, just kind of the importance of planning and having the conversation. One of my kind of the primary goals of my business or firm is to help individuals and entrepreneurs build and protect their legacy. And so one of those things about one part of that is legacy planning, or you may have heard it as estate planning, a will, a trust, a power of attorney, advanced medical directive, or for my business owner, succession planning. And there's all different components within that. And so that is the goal of the series to provide some education on the different aspects of it, making sure you understand how things work together and know that just because one thing works for one person, it's not going to work for you. The laws vary by state. And so I'm also excited today because it's not just me talking to you. I have a special guest, Mr. Jason Barber, here with me to join in this conversation and to share a little bit about who he is, what he does, and his why for that. And so I will add this, the conversation is being recorded. We are live on Facebook. So if you want to watch now, you can. If you're seeing this, you're not able to, if you haven't watched previous installments, those are available on the LA Legal Solutions YouTube page, where we've covered various topics. And then this episode as well will be posted on YouTube within a week. So got that disclaimer out. And now I want to turn it over to Mr. Jason so that he can introduce himself and just tell, like I said, tell the people a little bit about who you are and about this lovely background you have with you.
Okay, how you doing today? Thank you so much. First, I want to thank you for allowing me to be on Legacy Conversation. I really appreciate it. My name is Jason Barber. I'm the founder and CEO of Legal Will, Not a Bill. My slogan is Death is Real, so legal will, and not a bill.
Okay.
And guess what? Documentation beats conversation. Let me say that again. Documentation beats conversation. So I tell people it's so important to have documentation. And plus, the Father said in his word, Proverbs 13:22, a righteous man leave an inheritance for his children's children. So I get people to understand how important that it is to leave an inheritance for your children. So important. And I provide myself three different kits that I provide. We're gonna go through them a little bit later, but this is one right here. If y'all can see that, a living will, a will kit, and I also provide a living trust agreement, my favorite. But at the end of the day, and I want to give a big shout out to my partners, Legal Kits. They've been publishing kits since 1985, so I want to give them a big shout out as well. But my mission is to provide all people by educating you on how to successfully prepare your kits. We strive to save you money, your family money, through a usually friendly, when I say friendly, very friendly, do it yourself method. This will save you money by doing it yourself. To wish and respect all your loved ones on safeguarding their future and basically giving them a peace of mind that they need. Because that's what the biggest thing is, giving your loved ones a peace of mind during that time and being ready, being proactive. Because when that time comes, it can happen today or tomorrow. Guess what? You want to be ready. So I encourage everyone to get their affairs in order.
Yes, no, thank you. And we've talked, and I certainly agree. And if anyone who has knows me or has heard me talk about this, I agree wholeheartedly. I, of course, and one thing that I've always said is, I encourage people that I understand that stuff is not free, and right now everything costs more. I do understand that. And so there are things that we can do where we can be proactive to take control of our planning. Like we have a right to do that. And so I encourage people to do that. And this is one of the things when I learned about what you're doing, I like I said, love the fact that you have kind of taken the steps to provide things so that when people are saying, hey, I know I want to put something in writing. I want to have documentation, but I'm not in a position to pay for an attorney or someone to prepare it for me. I always say it's better you need to start somewhere and having a foundation. And I love the fact that you do have multiple options in terms of the kit. So it's a hey, because I think sometimes one of the many misconceptions, and we can get into some of those of why people that kind of cause people to not plan is they feel as though, oh, I don't have anything, or I don't understand it, it takes too much, or one that I've heard even within my family is, oh, it's just gonna go to my kids, or it's gonna go to this person because that's, it's just gonna go to them. And in some cases, there's some truth to that, but for anyone who does not have a will or a trust or, some type of plan, some documentation in place, each state does have laws that dictate what will happen. They call it the Intestate Succession Act, where they have put in place some kind of default rules of when someone passes, where things go. And for some, that works, but for a lot of us, that's not the case because no one is a monolith. The way things were done, back in the day when these laws were created, it was the more, I guess you could say, quote unquote, traditional nuclear family. And so if you're married, and you pass, it goes to your spouse and to your children. Or if you don't have a spouse, it goes to your children or to siblings. And like I said, for some people, that model could work. But for a lot of us, that's not the case because there's a lot more single parents or blended families, or hey, I don't want to leave something to my children. I want to leave things to my grandchildren, or I don't have children. I want it to go to nieces, nephews, what have you. And if we don't take the time to actually write that out and provide those instructions, then we shortchange our family. And so, like I said, that's one of those misconceptions. But I guess I wanted to hear from you too, Jason, of what are some of the misconceptions or just straight up lies that you have heard in your experience in terms when it comes to kind of the reason we don't, or people, especially in our community, that don't uh, plan or don't, or just kind of just like, I'm a wait and see.
Really, the number one thing that I hear all the time, people don't like to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So you by not having a conversation, it kind of put you in a lose-lose situation. Just on just the fact that you don't have nothing in writing, plus the people that you want to elect to, loved ones that you do want to leave something behind. Guess what? If you have more children, guess what? You need to sit down with them to let them know. If the younger one is more responsible than the older one, you need to let them know that. So if you don't have anything in writing, when you pass, they argue. They have big disputes on your assets. So I tell people, I encourage them to sit down and go over. Look, this is my estate. This is who I'm leaving it to. For it won't be no misunderstandings when it comes to these type of things. But definitely having a conversation is so important. So important.
No, yeah, I agree. Yes, that conversation part. I think my dad used to say when we were having a difficult conversation, like just rip the band-aid off. Just have it. Because trying to like, peel it and whatever, it makes it harder. But that is so true. And what I tell clients as well is, okay, you created this plan, but now, like you said, we need to continue the conversation and let people know, one, I've created it, and this is what I want. So that way, even because what I've seen happen too is some people, okay, they did create a plan, but then they didn't tell anybody about it. And then even I think about Aretha Franklin and her situation where she was proactive. They found like three, four different versions of a will, but it
Right.
wasn't, it was years later when they found one that was actually effective. But that was what, 5 years almost of the family trying to figure it out with the IRS and all the different companies, and all of this time, stress, and money has been wasted and lost because there wasn't, like you said, that that real conversation of this is what it is, this is what I have, this is who I want to have what, and I'm gonna make sure that there are provisions in place so that you all know what it is, so that, like you said, it's not the fighting or trying to figure it out of, well, no, she would have wanted this. And that goes into effect even, I would say that's applicable, where I say I talk about some of the life documents, that living will, or advanced medical directive, that's where that comes into, that becomes very important of where we're still alive, but say I get sick or I'm in, I'm something, it's short, even if it's a short-term illness or I'm in the hospital and I'm not able, I've lost capacity and I'm not able to make decisions for myself, then it's, well, no, mama would have wanted this, or no, he would have wanted that. So it's, and I believe that in your kits, you do have some documents that address that as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. I do. I do.
Okay.
And just to piggyback on what you're saying, it's important too to have a wealthy mindset. Because when you have a wealthy mindset, you thinking about your generation's wealth. You thinking
Hmm.
about your kids. And my mentor always told me, he said the difference between wealthy people and broke people, guess what? Wealthy people leave a will and broke people leave a bill.
That,
So it's important, it's important to have that mindset to want to leave something to somebody. Everybody has someone that they love that they can leave something to. And I tell people all the time, if you don't have nothing, it's going to the government per se. So I encourage people to have something written down, to have that mindset to get their affairs in order, for they can do leave an inheritance for their children. It's so important. It's so important. And a lot of, like you said, a lot of people say they don't have anything, but most time you do. You could leave somebody something that they didn't have before. So it's
right.
important.
And it's like we have more than we realize. And I love how you put that of having the wealthy mind, the wealth mindset, because it is even, you mentioned Proverbs earlier, like being transformed by the renewing of our mind. We have to renew our mindset in that. No, because like I said, I've heard some like, oh, well, if I talk about it, it might happen sooner. Or, I want to speak life, not death. But hey, we are going to die. It is
Yeah,
inevitable. I think
exactly.
there's only one person I know of that did not die.
Exactly.
And that was in the Old Testament. And I don't know if that's been
Exactly.
repeated. So outside of that, everybody else dies. And so it's like, hey, that's one thing for certain that we know will happen is we are going to die. But we want to make sure we're living full lives while we are here. And that when, like you said, which I know it's so simple but so profound, to leave a will, not a bill. Like don't leave. I get so frustrated and just sad when I see where someone's passed away and people are doing a GoFundMe or we're selling dinners to try to pay for the funeral. And granted, that's not necessarily tied to a will, but that's where I say it's a part of the whole, like that comprehensive planning. Because in addition to putting things in writing and documentation, we could get life insurance. There are options for very uh, cost-effective life insurance where you can put things in place so that, okay, maybe you're not able to leave, some lump sum of money to your family, but at least there's some things there to make sure they can bury you, they can, if it's cremation, whatever, they can settle your affairs without going into debt themselves or that stress. And that's and I've talked about this in previous sessions, but which part of why I want to bring this up, especially with you, because from that DIY standpoint of there are some things, there are people where, hey, I don't have a very complex estate. It is pretty straightforward. I just want to be able to write out what I want, and I can do that. But I always encourage people to add on that whether you have a will or well, with even with a will or a trust, there are other things that you can do from that DIY standpoint to make sure that your plan is as comprehensive as possible. So one of the first things that come to mind is your bank account. Uh, you can add a transfer on death or payable on death designation, essentially creating a beneficiary for your bank accounts. So that way, let's say maybe you didn't have life insurance or you don't have something else, but there's money in there that you've been setting aside to cover expenses. If you put that in place, then that person that you list can go access that bank account right after you pass away, as opposed to having to wait on the will to be entered into probate and the court to give permission. Um, so that's one thing. Some states, it's not allowed in Maryland, but some states do allow what's called a transfer on death deed, where you can create a beneficiary for the deed to your property so that way it also does not have to go through probate. Maryland is not one of those states, so you will need to make sure it's specified in the will,
Exactly.
or take some type of steps to transfer ownership before you pass away. But what are some, excuse me, I guess some other things or terms of the services that you provide? Is it the kits? Do you do anything in terms of outside of us having this conversation today? I've seen you in different at various places. So what else do you do in terms of from that educational standpoint? Because I know that's also important to you.
Very important. And that's why I tell people the peace of mind aspect. That's the first thing that I give people a peace of mind because the information that you get through the kids that guess what you can share with your kids. And that's why I encourage when they do get a kid to sit down with their loved ones and with their kids and go over what a probate is, what a trustee is, all this information. Because guess what? Knowledge is power. So once you get the knowledge, now you have the power. Now you can change your generational wealth. Because now, if you do have a lot of things that you do need to go and sit by with your estate, now you can sit down with the lawyer and have a conversation with him. You will have understanding on exactly what he's talking about. See, that's what a lot of people don't understand. You can sit down with a lawyer all day, but if you don't have the information and knowledge on what he's talking about, I mean, he can tell you anything. So I encourage people to have the knowledge, to sit down with them where you can say, oh man, you know what a trustee is. Oh, you know what probate is. Yes. And that's very important for me. So these things I try to allow people to sit down with, especially with their kids, because the wealthy mindset to me is to teach your kids these things for they can share it to their kids and to keep your name going. So it's so important that I try to plant that in people's head to get them to understand it's the knowledge is more important than anything. You can have $1 million. Guess what? If you do leave it to your kids, guess what? It's going to be gone in 1 year, most likely, because you didn't give them the information on how to keep the legacy going and how important it is. And that's what the wealthy mindset they does. They understand that. They don't want no misunderstandings when they come to their generational wealth to let their kids know, look, this is what it need to be done to keep your legacy going. So it's important.
No, yeah, I agree. I'm just kind of like, hey man, yeah, all that.
Yeah.
But it's because, and even I'm doing a cohort right now about, the wealth and wellness. And that's one of the things we were talking about of kind of thinking about because it's all connected of like what's your money story and thinking through of like some people were sharing how their parents set them down, or there was a story where someone was saying the parents had a financial advisor and they were bringing their child from like the age of 5 to sit in on the meetings, and then by the time I think the child was like 12 or 13 they actually scheduled a meeting for the child to have a meeting with the financial advisor with like, okay, hey, it's time to start planning now. And that it's like, wow, but also that's what we need to be doing because to your point, that's what wealthy people do of, you know what, I'm not gonna hide it from you. And I think I remember my parents having conversations with me about, what the bills were, how to pay bills, how to balance a checkbook and understanding. So I think it's all a part of that of like you said, just let's not, and I don't know about you, but growing up, I've, a child stay in a child's place. Just be seen, not heard, all of those. And I understand that there is a time and a place for some of those things, but sometimes I feel like that may have gone a little too far, or we as the children didn't always necessarily know when it was time to flip that switch to, oh, wait, no, I do need to tune in and pay attention and learn now. And so I'm grateful that now with the rise of technology and things of that nature that even I'm thinking about my child that she's just much more aware of what's going on and even how to use things that we're being more open and honest or even transparent with ourselves as well as with our children and our loved ones about what's going on, how do things work, where it is. And that even reminds me, I know, like you said, you have the documentation. People will put things in a safe deposit box. Then they don't put somebody else's name on that safety deposit box. And so it's in there, but nobody can access it. And
It's
so
like when people be married, guess what? They still have another person on their beneficiary and they get put to bed because now they're in a whole nother situation in love and married. Now the person they really didn't want to get the assets and the money gets it. Just like in my case, when my dad passed away, he didn't have a will. And he had homes, he had land, and guess what? That showed me at a young age, but he did give me the knowledge. So I do give him that. So now my thing is I had to take it and I had to start all the way over where I could have been set and it would have been a little bit more easy for me by
Mhm.
doing it that. But I didn't mind grinding, but still I could have did it another way. And that's why I encourage people because some people is not gonna be able to go the other way.
Mhm.
So I tell people all the time, make it easy for your family and not give them a headache because during that time you already grieving. Now you look at all the bills that you can ready to leave this person. Now it's overwhelming. And and that's what I love what I do because when they come to me, they come with their deep, darkest secrets. And when they come to death, and I'm kind of like a therapist at the same time because I have to, I have to help people going through this process on their loved ones just passed away. Now they don't have nothing in writing. Now they want to know the next step. But usually by that time, it's too late. And that's why I try to tell people. That's why I always tell people this is a great gift, not just for yourself, but for somebody that you care about, that you love. It's important. And these kits are only I provide only $20. $20 would change. I tell people all the time would change your life. $20. So I tell people it's so important, so important. If you care about your loved ones, give them this information where they can share it and then they can pass it on to somebody else to help them in need.
Yes, and that you right, that price, you will not find that price many places. Even and I guess too that kind of reminds me of how do you what are your thoughts in terms of, especially with what you're doing and the kits that you're providing, with this kind of the rise of some of the different kind of the AI based tools or kind of the automated services. Um,
I mean, only thing about those, what I love the kids because when you go to the courtroom, the courthouse, guess what? They're gonna want documentation.
yes.
Also, I tell people, print it out. I can't guarantee you that they will accept that in the court. And that's why I love legal kits because these are lawyers that put this kit together. It's
Hmm.
already, all that you have to do is get it notarized and then and I tell people, put it somewhere safe. Because once your loved ones have this in their hand, as soon as they take it to the court, it's not going to be no misunderstanding. They're going to say, oh, yeah, this is official documents that are going to allow you to take your assets and guess what, and pass it on to your loved ones. It's so important, so important.
It is, and like I said, I appreciate that the kids. You said you have worked with attorneys who developed it, and so and I also I know I'm just from perusing it. There, like you said, there's a diction, what is it, like a glossary of the
Exactly.
definition, the definition section, which I really appreciate because as you were saying, whether it's you can do it and you write it, but if you don't know what these words mean, you might
Exactly.
think you're writing out one thing, but you said something completely different.
Totally different.
And so that's where I would say with when I, met you and then learned about what you're doing, that's one thing I appreciate is that you're also offering the definition and that like here's a kit, but also here's some education so that you know how to use this kit appropriately and that it will be effective. Because that's one of my pet peeves as an attorney with some of these online systems or the different softwares that do it is that there's not a lot of education with it. And so yes, it's being offered at a lower price or it's quick and you don't have to go anywhere, but a lot of what I've noticed with them is there's a lot of kind of just that canned language of, hey, this is a clause and there's not really the room to write in and customize and tailor it to what you specifically want and need. And so that's what I do appreciate with your kit of it even being it's a it's a physical physical tangible
Exactly.
thing that you
Exactly.
can write in. Like yes, there is some of that standard language, but there's space for you to be able to write in what you need. And I always encourage people, like I said, you need to start somewhere. And so it
Hmm.
might be like if today where you are there aren't a lot of you don't have a large like I said a complex estate you don't have a lot of assets it may just be your bank accounts or your cars or maybe you have a house but then hey we're gonna keep living and we're gonna keep growing and as those things evolve then okay maybe it is like maybe today a will I need a will and a will cover the basics of what, will cover what I need, the goals that I have. But let's say 5, 10 years from now, I've acquired a few more properties. I've got some business and I've got these different assets. And I don't want to just leave it to everybody. I don't want them because, like to your point earlier, I don't want to just leave $1 million to my children because yes, I've had that education, but also I want to put some parameters around that to make sure that it stretches, that there's money to cover education, or if when they decide they want to buy a house or start a business, that there's money there. They have that seed money to start it as opposed to having to go through trying to get funding, things of that nature. And so the other thing I always like to make sure people understand is this is not a set it and forget it type of thing. Yes, you
Exactly.
need to do it. But I like with all of the plans that I provide or services that I do, is you get a 3-year review that's built in. But I always encourage people, you want to review it annually. Similar to, with the health insurance annual enrollment. Anytime there's a major life event, let's pull it back out. Does what I wrote last year still apply today, or do I need to change it? And it was something else you said about.
And then I'm gonna add on again what you just said. And two, another thing, guess what? Something is better than nothing. That's what people don't understand. Something is better than nothing. And it's so important. The information to me is mind-boggling. Like to me, that's the biggest thing. Because
Mhm.
without the information, I mean, it's good to have the documentation where you can write it out, but the information, you can change so many generational wealth. It's unbelievable. And that's what I try to get people to understand. Like, once you get the information, I mean, while you talking to somebody, you can share that with them, and they will be more talking about, oh yeah, let me go home, let me talk to my mom and dad to make sure they had their things in order. And then they found out they didn't. Now, since you found out that they didn't, now y'all can sit down and get their things in order. And then when they pass, they can leave you something. So I tell people, it's just having a conversation is so important. So important.
It is. And as you were saying that, and I think what I thought about earlier when you were talking about someone being married and they forget to update, I have seen that happen.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately,
Yeah. Just like
there,
Barry White, just like Barry White in his
yeah,
situation.
yeah, it's
He
like
was,
there's nothing you can do about it
there's
because
nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it.
you gotta hope that that person is out of the goodness of their heart will give that
Yeah,
one to
yeah,
something. They don't have to because,
exactly. And then you know another thing too. A lot of people have different. They've been on different jobs. They have different policies all over the place, and that's
mm-hmm,
why I love this kit because you can put everything where one person can find it. You put everything together where it don't be no misunderstandings. Where you can have it and somebody can find it and they can get everything that you had. See, whether people get everything they supposed to get. See, people just focus on their beneficiary, that $100,000. But guess what? You got things and policies from jobs you had when you were 17, 18 that you could have wrote down, and because you had a death benefit that came with it. That if you just had the number and called them and let them know, yeah, this person's deceased now. Oh yeah, they had a policy 8 years ago. Let me send that to you. So you want to get everything in that particular time for it. It don't be no misunderstandings. And that's what I have to, I have to fight my people for because they have stuff all over the place. You know, they're like, oh yeah, I gotta go home. I got stuff all. No, we need to get things together, put in one portfolio,
yes.
and then somebody can find it, and it don't be, like I said, no misunderstandings. And that's what we want, that peace of mind.
Yes, yes. The peace of mind. It even peace of mind for our loved ones, but it also gives us peace of mind once
E-
we put that
Exactly.
mindset of even just, and that's I'm happy that you said that because that's also a part of the planning of, hey,
Mhm.
let me sit down and think about, well, when I worked there, was there, I was contributing to a retirement account.
Mhm.
Okay, I haven't been there and I'm not contributing, but that money is still there.
It's
So
still there.
it's also a matter, like you said, taking some time. And I always like to say, have a conversation with yourself first about, and
Mhm.
let me think about what do I want? What do I have? Like, especially for those who have that mindset of, well, I don't have anything to leave. You do. You've been working
It,
in it just because
uh,
it's not 150, 500,000 dollars or $1 million, just because it's not, $5,000 and $10,000 can be a big difference for anyone. And so we don't want to leave it out there. And so it's, yes, figuring out what are the policies that you have. Do you need to consolidate them into one like retirement account, or just make sure you have written down the information so people know how to find it? So it's all important. And it's, as you were talking about the conversation and enriching other people, it came to mind as, it's like one plants the seeds, one waters, another gets the increase. And it's, which is one of the things I love. I enjoy conversation in general, but definitely this type of conversation, because it's, I'm learning things, we're learning from each other, but those who are listening to this conversation, who will watch later, are also benefiting. And my goal is, even if you don't come to me or you don't buy a kit from Jason, that you are, at least you're getting this information, and this is, it's informing you, it's enriching you, and hopefully it will encourage you to have the conversation or go
We
tell
plant the seed.
somebody. Yeah,
We are planting this.
planting the seed.
We are here to plant that seed. And just
Yeah.
like you, sorry to cut you off, just in piggyback off of what you said, like when you have to talk to yourself, and that's why I tell people with the living will, because guess what? You need to know if you want to stay on life support or not. You need to have that conversation with yourself. Like my mother, she don't want to be on life support.
Hmm.
My dad do. My stepdad do. So it's important that you have that conversation with the people that you love, to allow them to make that decision. Because this is your last final decision before you leave out of here. Are you want to be kept or do you want to be not kept? So I
Hmm.
tell people it's so important. You just sit down. Like I want to be on life support. So yeah, resuscitate me. So
Like,
so I
keep
tell people,
me
yeah, give me here if you can. So yes, you need to have that conversation. And then I had a seminar on like 3 weeks ago. It's important. If you're allergic to anything, it's good to put it in your living will.
Yes.
So when the doctor sees that and he be like, oh, he or she is allergic to that, guess what? They can look at it and not give you that. And guess what? It will keep you alive. Not knowing they give you something that can take you up out of here and you're allergic to it.
Yep.
They didn't know. So that's why I said documentation is good just to even put, if you're allergic to anything, to let the doctors know in your living will that you okay. This is what I'm allergic to. Please don't give me nothing that I'm allergic to.
Right. And
So
go
so it's
find out what you are
yes,
allergic to so you can
yes,
tell people.
exactly. Because most of the time when you're using your living will, you're incapacitated.
Hmm.
So no one knows your last wishes on what you want. So it's good for you to say, look, this is what I need. This is what I want. So I tell people, I encourage people to also, because most of the time when people come to me, they get the living trust agreement, then they get the living will. Because I tell people, this is a great gift because everybody need to sit down and ask themselves, what do I want? Because you don't want to leave that in the government hands on keeping you alive or not, because you had nothing in writing. So it's important.
It is, and it is. And I'm happy that you mentioned about the conversation with the doctor. So once you do, and I'm saying living will versus an advanced medical directive because I know we have people listening from different locations. And so some states call it, refer to it as a living will or a healthcare power of
Or
attorney.
power attorney, yes,
And it's also called an advanced medical directive. So if you hear any of those terms, that this is what we're talking about.
exactly.
But yes, you want to make sure that one, you do it, you talk to your family, but you also want to make sure you let your doctor know, because a lot, I will say there's been a lot of improvement, especially now with the like the electronic medical devices, like our electronic record system. Like you can, everybody, a lot of places have portals and they can, so you can upload it there. But you want to make sure that, so I would say when you do it, make some copies, give your doctor a copy. If you have multiple doctors and they're not like all within the same network, make sure they all have it or that they know that you have one and where
Mhm.
to find it so that they know what your desires are. Like he was saying, do you want to be kept on life support or don't you? If you are on life support, do you want them to feed you? Like if you're not able to eat on your own, do you want them to use a feeding tube to get you your nutrients or you don't? Do you want to have pain medicine? Like we can, the same way we get specific about what we want on our food and how we want to dress, or how, people, I don't know if people still kind of go in and design the cars that they want, but like you can, the same way we get specific and detailed about other things in life, that's what we need to do about our health as well as what happens after we pass away. So make sure that you're having those conversations with all the people who are close to you, essentially. And also, when you designate your healthcare agent or your power of attorney, make sure they know that you have designated them, because
Exactly.
if they don't know, it's like you didn't do it.
it's like you didn't do it. And that's why I tell people having a conversation is important. And then I always tell people too, it's three reasons why I tell people they should at least get one of my kits. First of all, it's the peace of mind. We already talked about by ensuring the basically your honors and loved ones are taken care of. So that's number one. Number two is basically you want to prevent disputes because as we were saying earlier, it's so many opportunities where loved ones lose it. Reduce their properties. They have conflict among their heirs over assets. And it's it's crazy. So I
Mhm.
tell people, you definitely want to have make sure your stuff is in order. And then number three, effective processing. Guess what? You want to make sure it's simple and it's state and settlement. And guess what? You want to erase that burden from your family. You want to make sure that they don't have that headache. You already have everything simplified for them and it's ready to go. And that takes that burden off your family. So I tell people that it's so important. So important.
It is. And as you were saying that, I guess the other thing that comes to mind is it's you were saying they should at least get two. Based on my understanding, you need to get all three.
Yes,
You
no
need
doubt, no
because
doubt.
you, or I would say if you're going a will-based plan, then getting the will, the living, the living will kit. But even with um, the trust, yes, is a lot more comprehensive. You can talk about what you want to have happen while you're alive, as well as once you've passed away, and putting in those instructions and parameters. But I always encourage people if I'm doing a trust-based plan, I also do what's called a pour over will, and that serves as a catch-all, or just kind of in the event that you forgot something, you forgot to talk about something in the trust, or you forgot to fund the trust, which that's that other component. If there's something for whatever reason it's not able to be dealt with in the trust, we do that pour over will to serve as that catch-all of if something for whatever reason it wasn't addressed or it failed, it can't be handled in the trust, we're going to put instructions in a will to say, and essentially direct it back to say, you got to go through probate, but we're instructing that this be then put into the trust. So it will all end up back in that same, I like to call it that bucket or those buckets. And that's why I say with yours, if you get in the kit, get all three so you can make sure that you
Since you
have.
said that, we're gonna talk about the kids right now. Just we already talked about we talked about the living will, and most people get this one from me. This one is for yourself. And if you
Hmm.
want to go to the hospital, you're gonna stay overnight, if you want to be on life support, this is the kit that you need to get. Now, I do sell will kits and I do provide these. Guess what? People do get these from me because I tell people if you don't have a lot to leave behind, it's something that's better than nothing to put it in writing, but it does go to probate.
Yes.
So when I tell people, and guess what? A lot of people have wills and they think they're okay until they pass. And then when they go to probate and they look crazy, they're like, man, like I have to wait a year and a half to 2 years to get my mom as their asset. Yes, because they should have transferred it into a trust. Now, that's my favorite one, as we can already talk about it, is the living trust agreement. And guess what? This avoid probate. For $20, you can avoid probate. That's crazy to me. So it's important that you get the kit, that you learn about it, fill it out, put it somewhere safe, and then anything happens to you, guess what? Now it's not gonna be no misunderstandings, and you better give your loved ones exactly what they need. And you probably get your assets in a month or so. So that's what you want. So I tell people all the time, put your stuff in the trust. And with legal kids, guess what? If you have any questions, we got the 1-800 number on the back. So guess what? You can fill it out. And we can't give you legal advice, but we can help you and tell you what to put what. So it's important. So the kid is no excuse. I tell people all the time, it's no excuse to get your affairs in order. You have no excuses at all. So it's important. So important.
No, yes, I love that you added that there is someone they can call
Yeah.
for additional information. Now and I always say this, if you called, like to your point of like if they have a question where it's more something in terms of legal advice, then I encourage people, I am a resource. You can reach out to me for a consultation to ask questions. Um, and still use the kit. And so, and I agree, like there's no excuse, especially now. There's too much free information or even reduced lower cost, reduced fee information available. And that's one, like I said, one of the reasons that I do I want to have these conversations is no, I'm not doing everything for free. If you come to me, your plan is not, it's not going to be $20, but I am offering the education. I'll put that out there. It's not 20, it is more than $20. Um, but I also recognize that everyone is not there yet. And there are people who just they prefer to, figure it out. They want to go do the research and or go to, don't go to YouTube University too much, but make sure if you go in there, you get incredible information. But yeah, they want to do it themselves, or so I recognize that, which is why, like I said, when we met, it was, oh, I want to be able to have this conversation with you and also to highlight you and make sure more people know about you and the services that you're providing, the products and services that you're providing, because I recognize it like, hey, but I'd rather you get this kit and you write out your wishes and you have something in place, then you just out here essentially making excuses as to why you can't, or that's not for me, that's for them. No, it's for us.
It's
And
for, yes, yes.
it's specifically for our, for the African American and Black community, or even other minorities, but specifically us in this country. The reason I would say that it's become such a big passion area for me is for so long we really weren't, like we couldn't, like the law, we weren't seen as humans or as citizens, and there were laws put in place that did not allow us to properly plan and transfer wealth, and or there were things in place that made it very easy for land and things to be stolen from us. But even in spite of that, our ancestors, they did it the best they could in terms of passing information on, oral history, passing stuff on. And so it's like, we've been doing this. We just weren't, there was for so long, we literally could not legally protect our property, protect our legacies. And now we have the right to do that. And so for me, it's how dare we not exercise this right to make a plan to protect ourselves, as well as, like you said, leaving things for generations, for our children's children. So that, like that's the why, a part of my why
Exactly.
of this. So yeah.
And it's so many and it's so many people and it's so many people that don't have their things in order. It's mind-boggling to me. Just like the rapper Offset, guess what? A lot of people do not have their will together. So
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, you have to get these things in order. You have to, because all the stuff that you building, it's gonna go not to your loved ones. It's gonna go somewhere that you do not want it to go.
Yep.
So that's why I tell people all the time. And then people ask me why. One of my whys is, especially from the living will, when my son was in a car accident, I don't know if y'all can see that, when he was in a car accident in 2019, when he was 20,
Mhm.
I didn't know his last wishes was. And I had to sit down, I had to get some clarity on that. Like, what do he really want? So I encourage people. We all think we're gonna be here tomorrow and the next day and the next day. It could be a blink of an eye. And guess what? We're no longer here. And now we have an opportunity while we're here to get our affairs in order. So that's why I'm glad we came together to plant that seed to tell people to get your stuff in order before it's too late. Please, before it's too late.
Yes, yes. And I want to be respectful of your time and the people's time, because I also feel like we could sit here and we could talk about this all day, because there's still so many different kind of sub components that we haven't touched on. But I tell people, stay tuned, there will be more. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. And so I know you've talked about the kits, but how can people find you or find the kits to order them, to get them so they can get started?
If you wanted to purchase any one of these three kits, you can go to my website, leaveawill.org, and purchase these kits, and I will send them straight out to you. Or you can go on my then you can meet me Sometimes I'll be at the Park and Grove. You can just call me and I can meet you. So it's so many different ways you can get the kids. But plus go to you can go to my Instagram, Legal Will Not a Bill, and just have that chat, post some pictures, and allow people to understand how important these kids are. But guess what? I'm so anyway. If somebody want to get the kid, guess what? We're
Gonna
gonna make
get them.
sure we're gonna make sure you get the kids because I
Okay.
be at events, I be at the Pop and Grove sometimes, so we're gonna make sure you can get these kids.
Okay,
Most
well, great.
definitely.
And I will make sure that when I do put this on YouTube, I will include a link to your website as well. So that way, if people are looking for the kits, they
Okay,
can
thank you.
also find you there. And like I said, I appreciate it. And I recognize that we've talked about a lot. And so if anyone who's listening or watching, you're like, whew, if you're feeling
Bless
overwhelmed, I apologize, but also it's okay, which
you.
is why this is other reason why it's being recorded is so that you can pause. You can take a
Exactly.
moment, digest it, process it. Sometimes it takes me my wheel is spinning. I need some time. So if that's happening, that is completely understandable and it's okay. Pause, but don't stop. Make sure you come back and you finish. And then once you've had the chance to process the information, go tell somebody. What was the song? Go tell it on the mountain. So yes, we want to go tell people about Jesus, especially this is Easter weekend, but also tell people about the conversation that you've heard. Tell them what you're thinking. Encourage that. Send the link. Let them
And
listen.
and then since you said it's Easter, and tell them, do you have your stuff in order? Everybody that you see, you ask them, do you have your stuff in order? If not, guess what? You need to get it in order.
You
So
do.
okay.
So yes, if you are, like I said, it's okay. I understand. I do this and it still
Mhm.
gets overwhelming for me because I have to, make sure I have my stuff in order. And then it's okay, like life is changing. Let me go back and revisit and make sure that it now reflects it says what I need it to, and I have those things in place. Because my child is a minor. So it's like, okay, who who is it that I want to, if something were to happen to me, whether temporarily or long term, yes, her father is there, but also who else is going to be there to help and provide that support for them to make sure, not just from the standpoint they can continue, it's not just about like a standard of living. And I'm gonna say this and then we're gonna go for real because I often think about Cinderella.
Okay.
A lot of us have seen Cinderella, know the story. I think of with Cinderella, and obviously I don't know what what the backstory was, but her dad made sure she was taken care of. So he did something in the sense of making sure that his family, they had a home, there was money to provide. But what he didn't do was put specific instructions in place in terms of how his daughter was supposed to be taken care of. Because if we, with the whole thing of Cinderella, yes, she was in the house and the stepmother was making sure she had food and shelter, but she was being treated as though she was a servant in her dad's house. And so it's like, hey, I don't want to create a Cinderella, especially with the increase of blended families. And that's why I say, yes, you can have the monetary resources in place, but you also want to make sure you're taking the time to specify what is the standard of care that I want for my children, that I want for my loved ones, especially if we were the ones responsible for them. So like I said, let's not be out here creating Cinderellas.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right quick too. And
Mhm.
then a lot of people ask me if they married, do they need if they have spending fannies here and there? Yes, you would need to get two kids. Guess what? And make sure that if you was married and had kids with somebody else, that they would be taken care of, and then the family that you in now will be taken care of. So that's why I tell people you want to have the documentation on what you really want to have it in place. So
Yeah, so like I said, get the kits, get all of them, get it as a package.
exactly.
We want we want comprehensive plans. And so, like I said, if you're getting the kits, do that. If you're someone who maybe you say, hey, I don't want to do it myself, or I have a bit more things going on, I do want someone to prepare that estate for me, then like I said, I provide legacy planning services as well as the business and trademark services, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you to help you plan. If you would like to, you can reach me at lalegalsolutions.com, and that's solutions with a Z at the end. It's the same on Instagram and Facebook. But like I said, I am more than happy to continue this conversation with you. And so between Jason and myself, you've got the information. there is a way, so we're not going to make excuses. We are going to be proactive and we're going to get our affairs in order.
We're gonna have that conversation, y'all. We're gonna have that. We're gonna
Yeah,
talk
so
about
let's
it.
keep the conversation going.
Yes.
So like I said, Jason, thank you again so much for your
Thank you for having
time,
me.
for your service. Um, and then for those of you listening, whether now or in the future, we appreciate it. Like I said, you have our information in terms of how to get in touch with us, but and also stay tuned. Like I said, this conversation is going to continue next month. It'll be a different topic, but same overall focus. So thank you all, and y'all have a great weekend.
Peace.